Hey guys, it's Gunnar here. Welcome back to the channel. Now today I want to talk a little bit about hinge cuts. Now you're probably wondering, well, why are you standing next to some switchgrass right now? Well, there's a reason behind that, right? I could go down into a bedding area right now, but it's the middle of the winter. It's very, very cold outside and we just got some snow. And I don't want to put any more stress on these deer during the winter months than I have to. So I'm going to let that be down there. And let them utilize a lot of those cuttings that I've done and a lot of the regeneration and browse that's available there unpressured, because last thing I want to do is put a lot of pressure on these deer, make them run around when it's brutal temperatures like this. I want to make it as easy as possible on them so they can go into springtime feeling good. So that's kind of the reason that I'm standing here today. But the reason that I want to talk about hinge cuts is there's so many mistakes and failures when it comes to when to implement them, what they're actually used for, and what the value is with them. Now, I'm not using hinge cuts every single year and every single bedding area that I'm going into. But one of the main times that I'm going to use a hinge cut or a few of them in an area is a spot that I want to make a bedding area, or that's already a nice bedding area based on the topography that really doesn't have any side cover. Now I'm trying to provide that immediate side cover with those hinge cuts. That's the difference between a flush cut and a hinge cut, is you're not waiting a year or 2 years for the regeneration of that tree that you cut down to allow the sunlight and the new growth to happen. You're sustaining that side cover with that existing tree. You're just bending it over at deer height. So you're creating that immediate side cover and whatever the browse value of that species of tree is going to be, and you're putting that right at deer level. Now there's a lot of times that I'll see guys that are cutting hinge cuts way up high, almost creating a canopy. Now that's virtually irrelevant for deer because you're putting it up above their head and they're not able to browse on it. So what you're getting is a canopy, but deer aren't looking for a canopy. They're looking for side structure and side cover, and then at the same time browse value. So when you're putting that hinge cut way too high, you're eliminating both those benefits of the hinge cut itself. So do not do that. I like to shoot for a knee to hip high hinge cut, and I'm really only cutting as far as I need to based on the size of the tree. If I'm just dealing with a sapling, I'll actually go ahead and I'll pull that tree over. Something that I can handle a little bit easier, I'll cut as little as I need to get through that tree and put it exactly where I want to. That way it's got a lot better chance of surviving for longer, right? So more than likely, the deeper that you cut into that tree, the shorter it's going to be able to survive after the fact. So I'm trying to prolong that survival rate of those trees, especially when I'm dealing in an area with topography. Now that's another thing. When you're cutting in some of these different areas, you need to analyze where you're at, right? If you're in more of a shaded, steep bluff area where you may only be getting an hour or two of that afternoon sunlight, especially in a spot down by my shoot stand like I've been doing a lot of work, that's a very shaded area. So I have to rely a lot on those hinge cuts and keeping that side cover while I allow those flush cuts to bring that regeneration and open that canopy enough to promote that regeneration. So it's not a one-size-fits-all method, right? That's what I want to stress to you guys here. It can be a really impractical method if you're dealing with flat topography or ridge tops, because you don't need to do that. In the first year, if you're flush cutting up on a ridge top that's getting plenty of sun, you don't have that lag time of 1, 2, 3 years before the regeneration is already up at deer height and then you're using it for side cover and food value, right? That's what we're going for here. We're not trying to just use a hinge cut because it's better than a flush cut. All that's doing is it's a tool to make it usable during that lag time of maybe that regeneration is not coming back quick enough because it's not getting full sun. That's when I'm using it. Now, I'll use it a handful of times if I'm screening a food plot or maybe screening an edge, and I can kind of structurally place those to push a deer one trail or another trail. You can use these things to structurally adjust where these deer are traveling, and that can be beneficial as well. But another thing that you really need to be paying attention to when you're actually going to go in and start beginning open up the canopy or creating some hinge cuts is you need to analyze the species that are already in the area and what's on the forest floor, because the last thing that we want to do is open up the canopy and allow all these invasives to overtake our now bedding area that aren't browsable and that aren't good browse for deer. We're trying to promote native regeneration, native brush, low side cover that are valuable and digestible for deer for daytime browse, as well as that side cover. So analyzing that forest floor before you go ahead and open up the canopy, because whatever is already existing there, you need to remember this, you're going to see more of, exponentially more of, especially when you open up that canopy. So remember that topography is going to dictate regeneration rates. If you're on a south-facing hill versus a north-facing hill, that south-facing hill is going to explode and grow up a lot faster than those north-facing slopes. So remember that. Remember, keep those hinge cuts knee to hip high. Always wear your safety gear, chaps, helmet. And remember, it's just a buffer and a tool to use to create side cover when your natural regeneration isn't coming back at the rate that is necessary for those deer to utilize it for daytime browse as well as that side cover. So it's basically just a buffer tool between those lag times in those very picky areas that aren't going to necessarily grow up as fast as I want them to, so the deer are utilizing them right away. And at the same time, it can be a nice tool to structurally move deer around and have them travel in the way that's most beneficial to you in your hunting. So if you guys are getting out there, getting after this habitat stuff this year, I've got a channel full of off-season videos for you guys to check out. So if you haven't yet, like, share, and subscribe. It helps me a ton, and I can't wait to hear how you guys are doing.